Curse of Strahd, Part 10, Chapter 10, The Ruins of Berez. This particular chapter deals with, well, the ruins of Berez, a half sunken town which is ruined, which is more or less south of Valaki. Now you can see the map of the town itself. Note each square is a 100 by 100-foot area. Note these scarecrows, which are hostile animated scarecrows, are very far apart from each other. This is the town where the player characters will likely encounter the witch known as Baba Yasaga. I call her a witch as she appears to be a hag. She's actually not a hag. She is just an ancient old woman and spellcaster who uses the blessings of the Night Mother and, as a result, bathing in people's blood in order to be immortal. But she probably would be thought of as a hag, and the townspeople of Barovia see her as a hag. She has recently stolen a gem from the Wizard of Wine's winery, one of the magic gems that allows them to grow wine or grapes to make wine, even during the incredibly foggy and cloudy lands of well, Barovia, and is now using that to allow her hut, the creeping hut, to move around Berez and other areas. Now, you get a description of the approaching the ruins, of course, and what the town looks like. It's very marshy. The town was overtaken by the river, and it's flooded and, well, muddy, as well as, on top of other things. Amongst the marsh are some old scarecrows, as I noted. They have been animated, but they are very far apart from each other, like 300 to 400 feet apart from each other. This might prove difficult to run for some DMs, but it might work for a very low level group of adventurers who want to fight scarecrows one by one. But for a high level group, this might prove rather annoying to have to go 400 feet away to fight the next scarecrow or whatever. You'll also note there are a bunch of these ruined cottages that are kind of under as U1 and all that. And then U2 is the ruined manor where the former burgomaster, who is now dead and now a ghost, once resided. I believe U5 is a statue of a young woman who lived in this town that Strahd fell in love with, thinking, well, that she had a passing, very strong resemblance to Irina Kolyana in her prior form and all that. This woman's name was Marina. And if I remember correctly, I think she's still a vampire spawn at this point in Castle Ravenloft. Now, as you're going through this adventure, this section of the adventure, which is pretty short, the player characters might approach the cottages. They're very likely to check out Ulrich Mansion, where again the ghost of the former burgomaster resides. He is trapped here by Strahd as a result of the conflict between Strahd and Marina and all that. And he will probably remain here, even if the player characters fight his ghost and destroy him, as he will simply come back after 24 hours if destroyed. The actual manor itself, you can see, is quite large. It's 300 feet across and roughly 500 feet long. Plus, it's got this little rounded pen area on the right side. There really are no good maps zoomed in of this manor house, and it's kind of a loss for the adventure because the adventure really needs a zoomed in map of this area. Now, again, the only real threat in the manor is actually the ghost, although there's a couple of scarecrows nearby. But if you wanted to expand this area, you could put the scarecrows closer, maybe even have some of them being lingering in this area, or maybe put some sort of hostile plants in there, like an assassin vine or a shambling mound, especially if you haven't run the death house as part of your adventure. There could be other threats within the ruined mansion, and this feels like a wasted opportunity from the designer's perspective. They may have simply chosen not to expand it, though, due to space for the overall book, and couldn't go any further. There's also a cellar, which feels like it could have been expanded and given a map as well, instead of just being a 30-foot square room of mortared stone walls and etc., and was partially flooded with stagnant water. This feels like something they could have expanded on dramatically, but there are some giant snakes down there. Again, if you'd like to expand on this, this is something I would recommend. You could do a lot more with this mansion that is originally intended. There is a big goat pen. That's that circular area outside the mansion. These are normal goats that are just there. They belong to Baba Yasaga. They're her goats, and she uses the goats in her rituals where she bathes in their blood in a bathtub so that she can live forever. Because again, she's not actually a hag; she's human. There is also in the prior chapter, I did note there is a unique goat, mountain goat that I forget his name exactly, but he's lingers around the area, particularly around Solinka Pass. It would make sense if there's goats here that maybe that goat would show up here at some point as well and maybe make an appearance or maybe do something involving these goats, like say trying to break them free or something like that. It's just an added idea. Now, you do get Baba Yaga's creeping hut as well. I've actually redone this hut so it's an isolated PNG file so that you can just drop it onto a map in Roll20. I've got it somewhere. It might even be on my Patreon. If it's not, I'll probably put it on my Patreon soon. But essentially, it's a roaming hut as long as the gem that she stole is in the floor of the hut and powering it. It's a very powerful gem, if you can imagine. Now, she probably has a few minor defenses here. I believe she has a couple of like swarms of ravens or something like that that helps protect it. When I ran this particular encounter, I expanded it to take over a bigger area so the player characters could approach. If you're running your game in Roll20, it might be really good to use the fog feature and allow the player characters to kind of feel like they're in a much larger area so it's not such a condensed fight. But it also interesting is the player characters could theoretically attack the hut itself, as there are stats for it you can find online. And note that here's the Raven swarms right there. But you could also have some of the scarecrows nearby, which is what I did with the hut as well, on top of having the player characters fight Baba Yasaga. You get the interior of the hut, you get some other things that are kind of in the hut, and her little items and all that. Here's her treasure pile that just things she has, which is just some common stuff for the most part, but it does include a scroll of Revivify, which would be really, really useful, especially here where there are no major temples. Also, that might be one of the locations where one of the treasures from the Fortunes of Ravenloft might end up. There's also a courtyard, and it's got a bunch of gravestones. There, you could expand that if you want by having some creepy things be there, maybe a random gas that just pulls itself out of the ground for no reason just to attack. There's Marina's Monument, which is very interesting, especially if the player characters have met Irina Koyana before and how similar she looks to Irina. Again, there could be treasures there as well. You could also throw in maybe some giant toad creatures. Even a frog hemoth would work here if your group is higher level. There are these walking corpses, which oddly are humanoids and not undead. They're just sort of here, and they could be used if you want. There's some odd standing stones. It's kind of like Stonehenge, and I guess they're over at U6, but they're not really depicted on the map necessarily, but it's just an added thing. One of the rare ravens from the Wizard of Wines, the Martikov family, lingers here and could be an interesting NPC to get information from. Because here's the Circle of Standing Stones themselves, which has been here for centuries. It's probably older than Strahd itself, and there's a couple of special events. There's the Creeping Hut itself, which again moves around with that stolen gemstone, and a lost battlefield, which essentially there was a large battle here, large battle here, and thus there are probably dead soldiers about. I would recommend, although it doesn't say this, to use the Phantom Warrior stat block of monsters. If your group is higher level, if they're low level, have them fight one of them, or have them fight a whole bunch if they wander into this area. It's just kind of an extra thing you can do for your group if you want to have Berez be a more interesting, more expanded area. But there's also the possibility of, well, if they haven't explored the ruined mansion of Argen I can never say it right, Argen Vostholt nearby, that there could be some phantom consequences here as well. And again, here's the very nice image of the creeping hut. which is the main threat with the hag that, quote unquote, that lives here in this particular adventure. Now, that's the whole chapter. There's not much. It's very short. It's some cool ideas for the Curse of Strahd module, but again, it doesn't quite. It should have been expanded, and they should have done more with it. Again, you might find this map rather frustrating. It's a good overlay map, but for a battle map, it just doesn't work. It's way too big, and a lot of the enemies here, the scarecrows, are just too far away. And they really needed to expand on the mansion here. And again, there are some versions of it online, but they're not very, at least at the moment, they're not very good maps, and they're kind of just they don't really match this description and everything when they probably should. As a result, this particular chapter, in my opinion, is one of the weaker chapters in Curse of Strahd, when it could have been better with a little more effort if they put just more into it. It just is a little bit lacking, effectively. As a result, I would give it a 3.75 out of 5. It's got some cool ideas, just isn't finished. It feels underdeveloped more than anything else. So guys, if you like my reviews and you want to see more of them, please like and subscribe. Check out my Patreon for additional content, including various maps and well other content, sometimes PNG files and some monsters as well, some conversions I've done for 5th edition, especially recently. But stay tuned.